Well, hello. It's been a minute. It is Monday, March 3rd, and I'm Rob, also known as that developer dad around here. I took last week and the back half of the week prior off. I ran into some technical difficulties. I had some issues with my Azure account that I needed to take care of, and then early last week I had some technical issues in real life, car and health insurance and all kinds of stuff going on. And then the back half of last week, the band that I played in back in the late 1900s is currently doing their farewell tour. Enter the Haggis. They were a lot of fun to play with back when Craig and I were first starting out. And in 2001, I retired from the band to pursue family life and a desk job. And then they kept going for another 25 years. And this is their farewell tour. And they asked me to come and join them on stage for a couple of songs on Thursday night at a really nice theater in Roanoke, Virginia. So my wife and I had a wonderful time doing that. And here I am. Now, while I was dealing with, waiting for phone calls and everything like that, all kinds of stuff that made it just a bad idea to try streaming because I was waiting on phone calls that I had to answer. Um, I did some some curiosity scratching and experimentation with GitHub Copilot in some languages and environments that I'm not really familiar with, primarily JavaScript and browser environments and using the 3JS library to do 3D rendering and all kinds of silly, goofy stuff that was an awful lot of fun. And that sparked an idea for a new short series of streams where I demonstrate and talk through how I, as a very experienced developer and software maker, um, have learned, and I'm still learning, how to effectively work with an AI assistant in the act of making software happen. So to go along with the experimental proof of concept work that I did last week with the 3D rendering and so on, I'm not ready to show that off yet. That's I'm going to call that project a little bit classified for now. It's skunk works, but that that proof of concept gave me a whole bunch of new ideas for other stuff that I want to do, and um, it may or may not fit into the DM's familiar. It may fit into a parallel product. I'm not sure yet, but I need a bitmap editor, and I have GIMP. GIMP is great for, fancy Photoshop style, but using free or open source software. But I need some capabilities that, frankly, it hasn't got, or that aren't working in the version that I have, or whatever. And what I need to be able to do is create simple pixel art style bitmaps. And I need those bitmap files, or I need the data that comprises those bitmaps, or those bitmapped images, to be as crunched down, as small as I can possibly get them. And then transmit the data from wherever I store it into the browser and let the browser do all the work of uncompressing and painting those bitmap images onto the canvas. And so that's what we're going to try to build with AI. Doing some, or perhaps even most of, the actual coding work. I'm going to take the stance of the product designer, the architect, and sort of the tech lead. And I'm gonna try to let the AI do as much of the work as possible, with me, the experienced software maker, acting as the director for for what it does. So without further ado, let's do a high level overview of what I've got in mind. So ultimately, what I want to do, and let's see if I can get into presentation mode here somehow. What's this? Fit slide to current window. All right, yeah, fine. So I want to create a bitmap editor, and it's going to have a couple of major elements. I need to be able to create bitmaps that are squares. The dimensions will always be powers of 2. So we're talking 32 by 32, 64 pixels, 128. And I think I'm going to make the largest one 128 because 256 in the larger working canvas rendering won't fit on a screen. And I really want to have the entire working canvas visible. And then, of course, we're going to have the preview canvas at its actual resolution always visible. Because we want to constrain the size, or we want to be able to shrink this down as much as possible, I'm going to constrain ourselves to use an indexed palette of 16 colors using RGBA to define those colors. So let's see what we got to do. I don't even have Visual Studio Code open. So I'm going to use a terminal over here, and I've got a folder created for it. I'll show you my Finder window. It's right here. I've got a folder where I hold my, I call it JS goofing. I'm just goofing around with JavaScript, being silly, being a silly little guy. And so I've got this bitmap editor folder right here. I've got a code folder and a docs folder, and I've got a terminal open inside the bitmap editor directory right now. So let's go into code. And I'm going to use a thing called Vite to do this. Vite is like a tiny little local development framework for in-browser application development. I think the latest versions of the React Bootstrapper are using Vite instead of pure NPM, like the old Create React app. It still works, but it spins up an older version of React that has a lot of vulnerabilities and stuff. And the Vite version doesn't have those vulnerabilities, but I'm not going to use React. We're going to use just vanilla JavaScript. So I've actually got the command line written out somewhere here. Here we go. Because I've got a memory for this stuff like a goldfish. And I have to Google it every bloody time. But this time I took a note and I have it up on screen. So we're going to use the node package manager, npm create. And if you've done JavaScript development in the past 10 years, you're familiar with this. And then I just go, I'm in the code folder, so Vite at latest. And I want it to get put in the current folder. Now it's going to ask me for a package name in a second. All right, we're going to use vanilla. And we're going to use JavaScript. And there we go. So ls, great. Now, after you've scaffolded the project, if I look in the code folder, we've got all of this stuff. So it's got a simple index, package JSON, public folder, which is where the excuse me, any images and stuff like that we need are going to go in here. Our source folder is going to hold all of our code. Now, before we can get started, we have to run the npm install, because all it's done is create this package.json file. And I'll open this up. Oh, stop that. Reopen it. And I got to find my stream music. And we'll shuffle it. Here we go. So let's open this up in TextEdit just to see what it looks like. So it doesn't really have a whole lot of dependencies in here. It's got some scripts defined. It's got a list of development dependencies. That's really it. If we were doing a React project or an Angular or Vue or whatever, any of those big web frameworks, there would be a lot more dependencies in here. There would be different scripts than we see. But yeah, this is fine. And I'm going to change this name from code to bitmap editor. Save that. So to get this thing fully bootstrapped, I got to run another npm command, npm install. And what that does is it reads that package JSON and goes out to the interwebs and finds all the packages and pulls them in and puts them, as you can see, in this node modules, and then creates us a package lock.json file. And then finally, to get it started, I'm going to do npm run, and run tells it to look in the package.json file and locate the script that I am about to invoke. And we saw that there's a script in there called dev, and that maps to some command in the runner package. So here we go. It's running on localhost 5173. So let's close that. And let's get a new window and just go localhost 5173. Boom. And here's Hello Vite. It's got the Vite logo and the JavaScript logo and a counter. And we can click on the counter and it does all kinds of very basic sample. Here's how you get started. Now, I don't want any of that, but I do need to open up Visual Studio Code. So, open in VS Code. Here it comes. And the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up and get rid of all of the Vite goo. So here's index.html. It's very basic. We'll go through these files in a little bit more detail in a minute. But I don't need counter.js. Delete that. Yep, goodbye. And as I work, and this is one of the reasons why I like using Vite, is as I make changes, it automatically updates my browser. So it's got real hot reload. So all of the goo is actually in here inside this main.js file. Now, I don't want any of that content here. It can go bye-bye. See you later. I'm going to get rid of these 3 lines because I don't need to import those. Goodbye. And of course, setup counter no longer exists. Nice and clean. And our local host is now back to the way it was. And in fact, just for laughs, just for goofing, let me grab the edge of my VS Code window here. Just to show what I'm talking about with this hot reload. We'll hide that. H1. Hey, what's up, TJ? Doing okay, man. As soon as I save, our edits go live. So that's pretty sweet. I love using Vite for this because when I want to do rapid development and I don't really know what I'm doing, this lets me code a little and then immediately test the results of what I've built. I am a Star Wars fan. My dad took me and the neighborhood kids to see Star Wars back when it was just Star Wars in 1978 it had to have been my 5th birthday. And it as it probably did for many little Gen X kidlings at the time, changed my brain. Okay, so we see that Vite's working. It's all good. So I need to grab a screenshot of what I want the AI to spell out for me. But what I'm going to do is, instead of feeding it this, because this is way too much detail for it to chew on. I tried this out yesterday, and it's too much. It gets confused and skips ahead in the book, and it doesn't deal well. So what I'm going to do is I am going to grab a screenshot of just this part. Let's pull this up, and let's see if I can edit extensions. Sharing. I'm going to send this to files or photos. That'll work. Add to reading list, airdrop. How about save? Save to books. Instruments, OneNote. Yeah, done. That doesn't do anything for me at all. Okay, so I'm going to have to open up photos, hit my Finder, and this guy is going to go into the Docs folder, and I'm going to rename it. Web app container layout. All right, so there's that. And like a dope, I'm going to leave photos open because I'm going to need to go back to it a few times. Like a dope, I opened up Visual Studio Code in the wrong folder. So I'm going to quit out, go back to my terminal, open a new terminal. Actually, I'll just use the Finder. Here we go. And I'm going to right click on bitmap editor, and we're going to open VS Code here. Now it's got access to my docs folder. Web app container layout. Now what I'm going to do is, okay, it's not going to let me feed it to Copilot that way, but let's open the chat. Hey, we're starting over from scratch. I have a new image for you to analyze, and I'm going to say at workspace. I've erased all the code that we stood up yesterday. So I'd like you to forget everything we talked about before this message. And let's see if this resets the way Claude does his thing. And it went ahead and started going crazy and doing stuff. AI coding assistants are very, very, very eager, but they frequently need to be reined in. So, hold up. Going to give you an image that represents a view of what I'd like us to put together. This first screenshot is high level and deals with the outermost layout aspects of the web app will be building. Now I'm going to attach a file. There's that. Hey, Johnny. We'll be building. Do not make additional assumptions. We're going to do this one step at a time. Okay, now it says, I understand you want to build this UI layout systematically, starting with the outermost container structure first. Let me help set up just the basic container layout based on the screenshot. And we've got app container, which is the whole darn thing. And we've got main content and status bar. I like it. And then the CSS, it's here. Min height 100 VH, display flex, flex direction. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over here, expand code and source. We're going to open up main.js. I'm going to open up style CSS. Go to main. And then I need to reopen web app container layout. And we'll go back to the chat. I'll apply those changes. Then I'm going to paste in some additional text explaining what I have in mind. Hold tight, please. And I'm just going to come up here to this little button here, apply to code source main.js, engage, and accept. Save. Now we'll bounce over to styles and apply to code source styles. Accept. Before we proceed, please clean up style.css to remove anything that doesn't apply to what we've specified so far. Any styling rules? All right, save. And Veet has already applied those changes as created by Copilot. Now, it's not right, but I do have two major panels. I've got this main content and then this status bar thing. So let's come over to PowerPoint again. I've got this screenshotted out into an image file, and I'm going to grab this stuff. I'm going to copy that. Okay. Dark and light mode media queries. It hasn't made any of those changes. You know what? I'm going to do this manually. I'm going to take everything from here, delete it, leave the cursor where it's at, and I believe this icon is insert a cursor. Save. And now we're a little bit better because my status bar down here is locked to the bottom and my main content resizes, which is precisely what I was after. Good stuff. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to say good stuff because I like being kind to everybody I work with, and I like to be encouraging, even when I have feedback that what was done was not exactly what I needed. So good stuff. That's a great start. Johnny, a freelancing Discord server. Send me the link on Discord to that if you're able to invite. I got to start making some money, man. That's a great start. Let's look again at the image for reference, and I'll provide additional information about my intentions for those two main screen areas. So I'm going to attach the web app container layout. And just in case I screwed up my paste buffer, I'm going to recopy this text. I'm going to paste it in here. I can get rid of that front matter. And based on my detailed requirements, let's update the CSS to match these specs. App container, main content, status bar. Okay. I'm just going to let it apply. And we'll accept these changes. And it didn't really change anything yet. Oh, I have to save them. Duh. Okay. So let's inspect what we've got here, because we kind of lost our central area here. App container is there. That's the whole window. That's fine. Main content is currently invisible. Margin is 10 pixels all the way around. Our status bar is there. Okay. So let's do a little bit more prompting. All right. That footer container looks good. Let's get the main screen elements named the way I've specified. Main content should become should change from being a CSS class to a hashtag named element form and be called hashtag, oh, what did I call it in my document? Work area. Work area container. Dot status bar should also be a hashtag named element called hashtag footer container. Please update the CSS file and the main.js to reflect this change. 100 servers. Gosh, I think I've got 12.5 servers that I'm a part of. And I had to go through it a while ago, like just a couple of weeks ago, and clean that up. Because Discord had just gotten way too noisy for me. All right, so it absolutely followed my instructions here. Let's apply it. Accept. And then I'm going to come down here, apply that stuff. Great. Accept. Save. And I'm going to put some content in here. H1. Temporary content. So the div shows up. Span. Temporary content. Temporary. Save it. All right. So, groovy. Yeah, I know I can mute servers. All right, so this is getting better. Much better. Couple points. Work area should always be centered within the screen space it has available to it. It should be sized to contain its content, but not so that, but it must disallow any overflow if the content is bigger than the available constrained screen area. Let's see about the changes here. Max width 1024, margin 10px, justify content, align item center, overflow hidden, align self center, max height calc 100 VH minus 70 pixels, which I believe is the, okay, yeah. So that's the height of the footer minus 10 pixels on top and bottom for to account for that 10 pixel minimum margin. All right, we're getting closer. Much, much closer. So let's apply it. And I'm going to hide the search panel. I'm going to pull the edge of this over and pull Safari back over here. Now, if it's overlapped, it's fine. And so let's accept these changes. Save the CSS. And it's still not quite, it's still not centered vertically. What do we need to do to have the work area container centered vertically within the available app container? Groovy. I'll check that invite later on, Johnny. Thank you. Just the app container styles to use all available space, set up proper centering. Okay, max height none. Key changes, justify content center to app container. Perfect. Flex centering will handle the spacing naturally. Maintain the footer at the bottom. Beautiful. Let's apply that. Accept. Okay. Save it. It's still not centered. You silly goose. What's going on here? I'm going to take this out. I'm going to say shrink and grow. Save that. Okay, here we go. That's better. Now, our work area container. Well, I want to have rounded, I really like rounded rectangles. They're just pleasing to the eye. So what I'm going to do is much better. I made a couple minor changes to the styling on work area container. It now consumes as much screen area as possible. Up to maximum width. How do we get it to size itself to fit the contents rather than that's good knowledge, Johnny. Thank you. Rather than stretching to consume all available area. Now, I could futz with the CSS manually and probably get this part done in a lot less time. Okay. Accept. Save. Okay, so now it's back up to sized to fit only its contents. Max height none. Okay. Now, finally, we need to get that work area container centered vertically. It's a meme that it's so difficult to center a div, and even AI screws it up. Just the space distribution in the app container. Okay. Do it. And it's applying the edits. Accept. Save. Here we go. And you know what? That works for me. That feels pretty good. Good enough. Next up, we're going to be putting components into the hashtag main work area. But before we go there, let's get some styling for the panels will be placing them in. Let's define a general panel class that provides a border property, rounded corners on that border, and appropriate padding. Then we'll need a couple flex classes as shortcuts to flex rows, a flex row, and a flex column layout. Let's not add any further styling to these classes because we're going to use them to compose our component layouts. And these classes will be heavily reused across multiple contexts. Great. Accept. Save. Now, we don't see any changes yet. Let's apply that panel class to our main workspace container. All right, so we'll update the main workspace container or work area container. And I just want to compare what it's suggesting against what's already there. Okay, so there's no changes there. That's good. Let's update this. No. Update. Apply an editor. Here we go. And accept. And save. Now, where is my panel? Border radius 4 pixels. That's too small. That's way too small. I'm going to say 10 pixels. And our padding is going to be 5. That's more like it. Border 1px solid. And let's just go black. Save. That's better. Okay. So we have the primary areas of the screen laid out. We've got reusable styles so that I can easily create panels that flow either vertically or horizontally. And we've got some basic styling on this panel concept. When I come back in the afternoon, we are going to divide up this work area container into 3 sections. We're going to have an image editor panel, a palette editor panel, and then an export and save panel at the bottom. And once again, we're going to work really, really hard to try and coax the AI into building what we need it to build. Now, I could probably have gotten to this point in a lot less time if I'd just done it manually. if I'm being 100% honest with myself, I probably would have, cursed and sworn quite a bit because playing with CSS is a pain. But the point is, there is some visual capability in GitHub Copilot. I can hand it a diagram, ask it to analyze it, and then converse to get what I want built. Now, it's been making some assumptions about colors and so on and so forth. Just before we break, I want to deal with that. I notice you've got hard-coded colors scattered throughout the CSS rules. Let's collapse those to named to variables in the hashtag :root area. Let's also make sure those names are generic and perhaps based on the role of the elements that they get assigned to. I don't want to go all the way into design token land because that's goofy and it's way more than I want to mess with. But this is better. This is much better. Yeah, apply that. Come on, you can do it. You got it. Accept. Now I'm going to pull this off over here. And we can kind of see back here. And I'm going to save. We should have no visible changes there. But what we can do is this. I'm going to change that back to 80 because I like the grays. Okay. I think we've had ourselves a productive session. You kind of get a view of, how to coax and sweet talk the assistance model into doing what we want it to. And my experiments, I've had much, much faster stuff once we get out of the weird CSS world and into more imperative and declarative coding, but we're going to get there. So what I'll probably do is get the actual container panels stood up and laid out between now and 1, and then we'll start actually trying to implement some interactivity. So until then, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all next time. Happy coding.